G'day, Ben here from on3legs.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the Nikon D810 for HDR photography. So HDR is fast becoming a very popular way to take photos, and whilst they are building into these cameras HDR functionality, it's still not as good as taking multiple exposures and then blending them together later in some sort of software. Now, for those of you that have been following me for a while, you'll know that I love to use Photomatix, and if you want to get into HDR photography, jump onto my website on the resources page, so on3legs.com, go to the resources page, and there's a link through to Photomatix where you can get yourself a free trial and you can give it a go. It's fully functional, just has some watermarks on it, but if you jump on my webpage, you'll be able to download that. Now, with the Nikon D810, it does have its own HDR function. The dynamic range of the sensor is really good, so there are times when you can just take a photo without having to worry about HDR and stretch that single raw file and get all the dynamic range that you want. But there are still times where you want to use HDR to get the image, to capture all of the light in the image. And what I'm going to do is now show you how to use the D810 and set it up for HDR. One of the things that Nikon did really good with the D810 is they've allowed us now to set the bracketing apart by more than one stop. So we can set it 2 or 3 stops apart. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm just going to go and press the info button on the back so we get the display up on the back of the camera, and you can watch this with me as we go through it. I'm going to press the back bracketing the button. Now there's a BKT button just sort of to the left of the pop-up flash. If you hold down that BKT button, it sort of gives you these choices in the rear screen here, and the 2 jog wheels are what makes all the difference, all the changes. So the front jog wheel changes how many stops apart it is. So you can see I can do 1/3 of a stop, 2/3 of a stop, a full stop, 2 stops, or 3 stops, and that's a first for a Nikon camera. You know, I know the Sony users were pretty happy when that came out for Sony, and I was wondering when they were going to do it for Nikon. As you can see, they've done it here. Now typically I will take my brackets 2 stops apart. The next thing is the rear jog wheel. If you move that, it allows you to choose whether you go 3 frames around the center exposure. So you can see I've got 0 there, +2 and -2, or if I go left with the jog wheel, it actually lets me do -2 frames. Okay, so it's going to do the 0 and then the 2 -2. I like to use going to the right with the jog wheel where I get the frames either side, and typically I'll do 5 frames at 2 stops apart. So you can see there that you can't see the last shots there, but that's going to do 5 photos 2 stops apart. Or if it's not that much dynamic range, you can just do 3 frames. Saves you having to take 7 shots every single time. Now that that's set up, I just need to put my timer on, my self timer, and I need to make sure that in my menu I've got my timer set to 2 seconds. As you can see, I've got it set for 2 seconds. I've got it set for 1 shot. It doesn't matter how many shots, and the interval between shots of 0.5 of a second. You can't go any lower than that. That is the absolute lowest. And like I said, it doesn't matter what the number of shots are. And same with this 2 seconds, that's the lowest time you can have. Now what happens when I press the button now, it's going to think about it for 2 seconds, and it just took my 3 shots for me. And if we go back and we have a look at the preview, you'll see there's my first shot there, and it tells you on the preview it's a +2. The next one is then my 0 exposure, and you'll see that's my -2 exposure. So it's that simple to set up. So just remember, hold down the bracketing button, set the number of shots, and I can change that at any time I like on the go, by the way. If I press down, if I decide I want more frames, I can just, change that on the go. Now I've got 5 frames, and I can change that to 1 stop apart if I feel that's what I need. Same thing, as long as I've got the timer selected, and once again I'll show you that. We go into the menu, timers, self timer is what you want, and you can see there the self timer delay is set to 2 seconds, the number of shot is 1, and the interval between shots is 0.5 seconds. As long as I've got that done, I can then take the photo, and I'll do that now, and it will now take 5 shots. Just trying to stand nice and close with the microphone so you can hear it, because the D810 is very quiet. So there you go, so you can sort of see how simple it is. And if I just preview those for you, you'll see now that I've got 5 shots. Here's my +2. Here's my +1, so that's the second frame there, that's my 0, and then I've got a -1 and a -2, and you can clearly see that I've got all the dynamic range there, and when I put those into Photomatix, it'll pull all the best pixels out and make a HDR photo for me. So hopefully that's helped you. If you've got a Nikon D810 and you want to shoot HDR, that's how you set it up. It's nice and simple. I would always recommend just doing it at the bracketing at 2 stops apart, unless you've got something in particular that's got a huge amount of different light throughout the situation. But those 2 stops apart should be more than enough. That means you're only shooting 3 frames every time you want to do a HDR photo, nice and simple. Now, if you found this helpful, make sure you share it. I'd love to hear your comments down below, so leave your comments and let me know what you thought. Also, if you can hit the subscribe button, that way you'll never miss another video. Thanks for tuning in, and cheerio.